Hi guys, so today we are carrying on with surrealism and we are looking at transposition. So transposition means to change the content of an image. An example we've got here is from René Magritte. So you can see in this artwork he has transposed the iris of the eye for a sky, and you'll remember from when we had our introduction to surrealism that this sky motif is something that we see a lot in Magritte's work. If you look closely at this picture, it'll look better on your screen than it does on my printout. You will see that the eye itself is hyper-realistic. So we've got the rendering of the eyeball, the skin of the eye around it. But when we look at the clouds look like a picture that's been inserted rather than laying on the surface of the eye. So that is the transposition. It's been changed, the content has been changed entirely. And then we've got the pupil that kind of floats in front of it in a slightly obscure way. So we're going to be creating our own surrealism eye. I've put on some examples there made by past students and other people's work, so you can get a few ideas there. We're going to start off working in pencil today, but then we are going to add some colour. So have some colour pencils ready so that you can put that in as and when you're ready. So you've got different ideas here. You've got ideas where you're changing from black and white to colour and using something to break the frame. I really like these positive negative ones where you start off with a row of buildings that are in positive and then as they go into the iris they become negative. Playing around with the pupil as well. Animals are quite a good one to add into this. I like the way the cat's just sat on the edge of the eye here with its tail hanging down. Think about where you're putting your images. You might choose to put it around the outside, you might choose to put it on the inside, you might choose to put it on the inside rim of the eye, like here, or you might decide to put it in the iris itself. So have a think about what it is you want to do before you start. You'll see on the next slide I've put this image for you so you've got a starting point. You can copy this, you can do it freehand, you can look in a mirror, look at your own eye, or you can print this and work directly on top of it if you're able to do that. So you've got that starting point for your basis for your eye. So I've got an idea. I kind of want to do some water in mine, so I'm going to have a waterfall coming out of my eye, kind of going into some rapids. So I've quite a bit of fluid movement coming out of it. So I'm giving that impression of the water coming out from inside the eye there. You could do the same thing with fire or smoke, just by hooking it over that inside edge of the eye there. And I'm just going to put a couple more in there. It really feels like it's gushing out. And then I am going to, I quite like the idea of using the highlight in the pupil as a moon, so I'm going to put that in. And then I want to do something with these eyelashes. So what if they were to become twigs or branches of a tree? Remember we talked about how to do branches before. If you start off thick at the bottom and then gradually just keep splitting them, then they start to look like, I suppose, trees blowing in the wind is what I'm going for. So you can do whatever you want for this. You think about your own theme. You might just want to change the centre of the eye for something else. You could change it for a football, that would work quite well. A donut, an orange, you know, an orange cut in half with the segments coming out, that would be really effective. So think about what's going to work within that space. I've gone a bit more landscape orientated with this, but you can use your theme, have your theme centred around any of the things we've talked about. Okay, so I'm going to stop there with pencil and now I'm going to start working in colour. If you've only got pencil at home, that's absolutely fine. Just work in tone, but make sure you really build up your tones of colour. So I'm going to make my eye, it's going to be a green eye. Remember we talked about when you put the colour in on the iris, like the spokes of a wheel. So there's no point me colouring it flat. I don't want it flat. I want it to actually feel like that texture of the eye. When we looked in the mirror and we looked really hard at our eyes, this is what we saw, was all the lines coming out from the centre, and I'm building them up so I get that depth of colour. Then I'm going to go in with the second green, which is slightly lighter. So I'm building that up. And then I'm going to take that a bit more carefully towards the middle, like that. And then towards the edge, you'll remember we talked about there being a darker line here on the edge of the iris. So if you look in the mirror at your own eye, you'll see almost always you get a darker circle towards the edge. So I'm just going to put that in and then take a bit more of that green in. So if I was doing it, not videoing it, I would keep moving my paper to make it easier to get the angle that I'm trying to get on my paper. But because I'm doing this for you, I'm keeping my paper where it is. Okay, and I'm actually going to put a little bit of blue into that, just to darken it off a bit. Get that darker edge around there I want. And then a few heavier lines and through just to build that up. Okay, happy with that. I'm then, I think that's black, yeah, going with black in my pupil. And then I'm going to start working on that water. So I'm going to use a bit of purple in there just to get a bit of definition in my shapes. Could do this in paint as well. If you've got paints at home, by all means get those out. Love to see you painting at home. So I'm creating that idea of waves and movement of water. So different pressures, pressing heavy and light to build up that layer. I'm going to just put in a little bit of flesh tone around here, just so that you know that it's an eye on a face and not just floating. So I'm going in with yellow and then I'm going to layer that with a little bit of pink just to make a flesh type tone, because I haven't got a flesh colour pencil. Do it just pink, it tends to look a bit plasticky, so I'll just put a bit of yellow through it as well. A little bit of pink in there for the tear duct. Okay, so for these trees and the eyelashes, I'm actually going to go in with a black fine line pen for this because I want to add another media, so you can do that as well. If you want to use watercolour and pencil and felt tip pen, by all means mix your medias, that's absolutely fine. Biro also would work well for this, your writing pen. So whatever you got at home. That one's running out a bit. Let's try this one. And I'm just going to use that pen just to define some of these lines as well. Don't have to do this, just what I think will work quite well. The design that I'm doing. I just want to thicken up some of those eyelashes and then have these. And then what's quite nice with this, you can use, if you've used a felt tip pen like that, you can just use a bit of water, brush, just to drag some of that ink through create a bit of tone using that, just using that ink. So that's just, it was just a normal felt tip pen and just water on a brush, and that will allow that ink just to blend a little bit. Give you another little bit of texture in there. Okay, so there is my Transposition Eye inspired by Magritte.